Hello, another foundering car. Again the Swift Sport Hybrid ZC33S. And today we will discuss if you're going to modify a car, what should you focus on, in my opinion. So first off, I would recommend to buy a car that already has the properties that you want. So what do I say in this case? So for example, if you want to have a budget type of car and you want to make it a faster car, it's quite hard. So for example, the suspension could be different, or you need something else like brakes at the back. They are quite hard to put there in the later stage. I'm not saying that it's impossible. Sometimes you can swap it out from a different type of car. The beeping that you hear is the safety system when he thinks that you could collapse into another car. It's quite overzealous. And the other thing is that although that modifying will cost you quite dearly, and when you try to resell your car, you will be better off when you started off with a car that's better to begin with, in my opinion. Sometimes there are exceptions to the rules. For example, if you have a car that's down-tuned, you might be better off to start with that car because you have an easier potential there. So now back to the basics. What would I recommend? Especially if you have a turbo car, there are some additional things that you could do, in my opinion, as compared to a naturally aspirated car, but you decide. So I would focus on good brakes. If you already have good brakes, you can keep it like that, but you can get, for example, green stuff or yellow stuff or red stuff brake pads on your existing brake system to make them perform better. That's an example what you could look into. Good tires as well. Why is that? Good tires will result in better contact patches, so more grip, which is good for acceleration, deceleration, but also turning. If you have that tackled, I would also recommend, and it could be combined with your good tires, get rims on them. So lightweight rims that are the lightest possible. And why is that? Because it's rotational mass. And what does that mean? It's mass that is turning all the time, and that's way it has like 4 to 10 times as much influence in lightening that part as compared to the non-rotational mass that is dampened already. So that, what am I saying? The rims and the tires are not dampened, they have contact with the road, whereas the rest of the car is put on the dampers. So you have the springs and your dampers that help to settle the ride. So that's one thing. The other thing is those parts are turning. Another part that's turning that could be quite an improvement when you could lighten it is, for example, the flywheel, because also rotational all the time. But if you do that with lightweight rims, you can have a real impact on the performance. So better acceleration, but also road holding, not so much braking. That's not that's much of a big influence there. But if you're looking for rims, you should focus on those that still leave room, especially if you want to do a big brake conversion, that you have ample room. Please keep it in mind. And also that you can fit the tires that you want. If you want to have wider tires for more grip, for example, you're sometimes limited to the rim that comes with it. In my opinion, you should go with the smallest, lightest rims that still give you the needed room for your braking system, and also the good clearance. And I will also not go with tires that are too wide. One, it adds mass. Too much grip is not always a good thing, because it will make the car feel a little bit more sluggish, so to say. Then back to the other things. What are some other things that could improve the performance of your car? In my opinion, you should focus especially on lightweight. So what you can do is, for example, change the exhaust system to a system that is more free-flowing. More free-flowing will free up a little bit of horsepower, but also if you, for example, have the AKS system that I have on my car, you can also free up weight. So for example, 6 kilograms and a bit can be can be reduced on the weight of your car, which is a great benefit. So you could either put some more load in your car, so for example carry some material that you really need and still have the same weight, but if you're not carrying that, the performance will increase not only by the performance of the exhaust system but also the weight reduction that you do. That being said, a more cost-effective option, especially if you have a turbo car, is to go for a chip tuning. So chip tuning could be optimization of the engine management, so this gives you a little bit better fuel economy oftentimes, but if you have the same speed, but also frees up quite a lot of horsepower and newton meters. Sometimes, especially if you have a down-tuned car, this is a very big difference. A down-tuned car is a car that has, how to say this easily, has not the full potential of the car because they have multiple engines and they just want to use one architecture, so that reduces cost of course, and also is an easy way to free up some horsepower for you. So that could be a way to approach this quite easily, but keep in mind when you chip tune you will also go a little bit into the reserves of the engine, because the engine is normally tuned to have good working operation on a variety of fuels. So even if you give it less quality fuel, you will, the engine normally will pull through most of the time. But when you go for chip tuning, you better off with better fuel. Sometimes chip tuning maps also have different maps for different fuels, so that's a good way to approach this and still have the benefits of the flexibility of the engine on different fuels, but also the benefit of a good performance on premium fuel. So foundering car, that are the basics. So to summarize, good rims and tires, lightweight applications, so for example the exhaust system, and 3, chip tuning. That are the main that you can do on RV car. Another thing to consider is brake conversion, especially if you have room for a big brake disc conversion. And a last thing that I haven't touched upon that much is dependable, because it's not always improving performance. But if you are able to lower the car will feel stiff and it will add to the driving pleasure, and also you have less iteration, especially with a front drive car that you have. When you're accelerating hard, the front is lifting, and when the front is lifting you have less traction on your front tires, so less traction as well on the performance of the car. So that's the thing that you can diminish, and you also have a little bit higher top speed because you have reduced drag, which gives you higher top speed and also less fuel consumption on average. On the other hand, by lowering a car you can also ruin the basics, so it depends, and therefore I haven't mentioned it before. Foundering car out.